MS, Unscripted.
And when did you get diagnosed? How did that happen for you?
Well, it's interesting because I've heard the term. I've heard the term, and so it's one of those things you'll hear a term like HIV, and you go, "Well, that's not going to ever happen to me." So, you know what I'm saying, right? And so same thing, bladder. Mine was weakness. I couldn't walk. I was losing weight, and they said it was my thyroid. So, all right. Because, I was like 180. I went down to 110 pounds. But then I noticed, like, when I was, like, driving and my foot was, like, on the brakes, the car would still be moving. I was like, why is the car still moving? And all I'm thinking is, I do not want to hit anybody's car. And they have to explain, I don't know why I don't have any strength in my leg. But they still couldn't figure out. They was like, it has to be the thyroid. You have Graves' disease. And so they took out my thyroid. But I was like, no, this has to be more than thyroids, right? Because there's no reason why I can't walk. There's no reason why I can't hold my bladder. Why can't I put on this deodorant? I went from spray deodorant to roll on. I couldn't even put on my bra. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I couldn't put on a sports bra. I was like, somebody needs to help me. I was like, I literally reverted to a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Trying to get dressed. 3-year-old, really. And I just was like, okay, something's off. And then I go and I'm like, they're doing this test. They're taking blood. Girl, 50 vials of blood, 50,000 vials of blood. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, what is going on here? Like, this is not normal. This is not right. And then I go and they're like, yeah, we think it's something to do with your, one of your nerves, your vertebrae, like some type of nerve or cord, and maybe it's stopping the oxygen to your brain. And so now they start doing these tests, these putting these things on electrodes on your head. Then they're like doing blood. Then I really felt like a guinea pig. And I think for me, how you said, like, when you found out, like, you cried and stuff? I think for me, I did so much crying before I knew. I did, because I was so weak. I couldn't get out the bed. I couldn't get off of the couch. I couldn't sit up. I couldn't even walk without falling. And every time I would fall, I would be like, what the I was like in a horror movie. You know how, like, the chick is running from Jason and she falls and they're like, bitch, get up. And I'm like, I can't. Right? And then I'm like crawling slowly waiting to be massacred, but there's nobody there. And then I'm like, what is going on? And then sometimes I'm like, and then by now the thyroid is gone and I don't have a voice to scream in the house. So now my voice is like, and that's still trying to come back, but I didn't have the ability to be like, hey, everybody, I fell. And then my husband, because he would hear, brump. This is hardwood floors in here. And he would come and he would stand over me and be like, how'd you fall? How come you're on the floor? How come you're on the floor? Why are you on the floor? How come you fell again? I'm like, if you don't pick me up. You know what I'm saying? Like, stop asking me why I fell. I don't know why I fell. Just pick me up, right? And I'm just like, get on the couch, and I'm like, I don't even want to move. I don't want to move my legs anymore. My legs feel heavy. I feel tired. I feel exhausted, and I'm just like crying. I'm weeping because I'm like, this is not me. I have energy. We're always so used to moving and do what we have to do.
Yeah.
And so I ended up in a coma and still didn't figure out what's going on. Ended up in a coma. Diabetic, also, so that's fun. I ended up in a coma. My blood sugar dropped because it was high. It dropped. My son found me. He said I was like sweating like profusely. And he normally he never gets up early. But God is good. He came to tell me, like, all right, I'm going to school. And it was like 7 a.m. He says, I like walked in the room and he said, you were like sweating. But he said your hands had the covers gripped.
Wow.
And he said, my eyes pop open. But I wasn't staring at her. And he was like, whoa. what's going on? And he said, I didn't turn my head or anything. Because normally when he says bye, I go, all right, because I talk in my sleep.
Yeah.
Right? So if you know somebody talking in sleep, and all of a sudden they're talking, you're like, wait a second, what happened? She normally is like, I'm like, have a good day, all that stuff. And he's like, yeah, you talk in your sleep, but now you weren't saying anything. And he was like, okay. He told his dad, something's wrong. He's like, let your mother sleep. He's like, no, something's wrong. And he said, we came back upstairs and your eyes were closed. And his dad was like, Sindy. And I was just like sound asleep. And then he just yelled my name. And he said, literally, my eyes opened and I sat up like a mummy. Like I was possessed. I don't know how to do any crunches. Not that I'm fat, y'all, but so it's like stuff like used to see. Like, did she just sit up perfectly and while she was sleeping? And then he was like, I thought you had a stroke. And then when they came, they were like, oh, her blood sugar is like 37 and dropping, right? And so they took me in the ambulance, and by this point, my eyes were open. They wouldn't blink. They were just open. And so my eyes were like open. It wouldn't blink. And they took me in the ambulance. I don't remember any of this. And the whole time in the ambulance, my eyes was open. They got me to the hospital. And my blood sugar was like dropping. They was like, oh, she's in a coma. And I think by the time they got me to the coma. Listen, by the time, that's another thing too. I speak in weird type of backwardsness. I have dyslexia in
happens.
speech, right?
That's what happens.
I'm like, the hat, and I'm like, give me, how do you say that phrase again? Things I used to know, I don't know. And then when I talk, it sounds like blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
Right?
That's one of the symptoms. That's what sucks.
And I'm like, what the frick? And then so when I came to, I remember like looking around and going, what's going on here? I went to bed and who are these people? And then I remember like saying to the lady, where am I? And she was like, welcome back. I was like, man, my eyes have been open for 3 minutes. Nobody said. She was like, your eyes have always been open since you walked in here. And I was like,
wow.
Oh, okay. And then they was like, oh, you were in a coma. Da, da, da. So now, mind you, I was still doing the process work to figure out what was wrong.
What it is you were, yeah.
And so while I was at the hospital, which I spent 26 days, I had an appointment on Valentine's Day. Mm-hmm. I go to the neurologist, and he sits me there on Valentine's Day, 2024, and he says, all right, we've done some tests. Da-da-da. I'm glad to see you're back from your coma. Boom. And the issue is, he was stuck. This man is 80-something years old. Mm-hmm. He goes, your brain looks like you belong in hospice.
Wow.
I don't know how you're walking or talking. And I'm looking at him like, brother, barely. Because I'm falling. He said, yeah, I know you're falling. But he says, you ain't even supposed to be walking. And that takes it somewhere else. Because as much as we want to bitch and moan, there's people who have it so much worse.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? And yes, I'm pissed off. I don't get to drive anymore because I'm a liability out there. Does DMV know this? No. But I don't drive because I don't want to have to explain it to anybody that, oh, my leg didn't want to work. And he said to me, you have MS. You have a rare case of MS where 0.00009% where people have MS, their brains have lesions. I said, how many lesions? He said, you have too many to count. Because I've seen people on TikTok go, I have 50, I have 36, I have 100. He was like, your brain is riddled with holes.
Wow.
He said, you have demyelinating sheet, the cover of your brain. Our brains are wired like our phones. You know how our phone cord is? And when the cord is, the wire sticks out, and so you're trying to charge your phone, so it's like boom, 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 boom. And then you got to wrap, and you're like, I need to buy a new charger before I short out my phone. So basically, my wrapping on my brain, the wires are sticking out. And I go,
Mm-mm.
okay, so what do I do? And he says, well, I could put you on a treatment, but the problem is I've been doing this a while. And back in the days, if I put you on a treatment on Monday, by Friday, you'll end up in hospice.
Wow.
And I goes, all right, thank you. And he goes, well, I could, every 2 months you come. And if anything changes now, if you can't get out of bed one day, I could give you treatment. And I thought it was the weirdest shit I have heard. Because I thought to myself, if I can't get out of bed, I don't want treatment. I want off this planet.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. And I had a doctor, Dr. Bernard Ashby, who knows, he's a cardiologist who knows, he's on the MSNBC and all that stuff. But I also know he knows Dr. Matthew Jones, who is a cardiologist in Brooklyn. Actually, he told me, don't drive, be careful and stuff. But he said to me, I know someone that, neurologist that you could check out. She's Lauren Blitz. She is the MS director of all Presbyterian hospitals. Now, this was in February. You couldn't see it till August.
Wow.
Right? And so it was like, and that's another thing. When you're trying to get to a good doctor, you got to wait months.
Yeah, you got to wait.
It's like getting a good table at one of
at a
those
restaurant.
You're like,
one of the Michelin 5-star Michelin restaurants.
Okay, I want to go to Chez Marie. You know what I'm saying? I can't wait to eat this exquisite, lobster or whatever it is. And so, I went to her, and she even told me that she was stumped. She said, "I want to apologize," but that meant a series of tests. These people had to do a spinal tap. That was hellish. Because they go in there and they tap you, and then this liquid comes out. And first of all, I didn't even know this doctor. He had this Belgian accent, and then he says, "I'm trying to get it out," and I'm like, "I'm spraying lidocaine. Lidocaine's not doing nothing, sir. You're trying to juke me in my spine and open up a hole to take out a fluid out of my body. It hurts. You gotta stay still. You're being invasive." Anyway, when he got it out, he was supposed to show me what it looked like. Can I tell you, they ran out like vampires with my liquid. Anyway, and then I was like, okay, now what? And then they were like, oh, you have oligobands. You have 7 oligobands. And it was like,
what's that?
Now, apparently, the liquid in your spine is your brain fluid.
Okay.
And if you have more than 2 oligobands, it means that you have demyelinating sheets of the brain or in the spine, and you are susceptible to MS. But the more you have, that means you have MS. So at 7, I'm up there. And so I went, oh, so now I know why I'm driving and my legs are tremoring, like like shaking violently. And then I gotta be like, it's okay. And did I cry? Have I cried since February 14th? And then my second diagnosis was on November 20th. Have I cried? I have not cried. I've not cried because I did so much crying before that I have not cried, because if anything, I'm on the road to redemption of like, I'm not defined by this. This is not defining me. Like,
That's amazing that you thought that way.
Yeah, because I go, yo, I didn't know. I think that's what the trauma is. For me, it was not knowing what's wrong. And now that I know what's wrong, it's like, okay, how do I work smarter, not harder? And then, the moment where my husband tells the kids, oh, nothing's wrong and mom is fine. And it's like, Mom, can you wash the dishes for me? And I'm like, I can't even stand here and I can't even clean these dishes correctly, right?
Yeah.
Now, that was a moment I did cry. Because I was like, bro, this right here is insane.
Yeah.
Or just like, I go to the dentist and I'm brushing my teeth and it's like, oh, you need to brush harder. And it's like, oh, you got to get the one that vibrates. And I'm like, I don't want to make myself such a freaking newborn baby that when you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
And it's bad enough you're losing it.
Pretty much.
And so I was diagnosed twice, and I think for me, what's more painful for me, this is why when I said to you, did you lose any friends, is that I got to really see who people were. I think for me, family was great. Family was great. My kids, I had to kind of be like, let me explain to you what's going on. But I think for me, it was, I pride myself on friendships. It was the behavior of people. It was almost like I had leprosy. Right? It was the non-compassion, no compassion. None whatsoever. I remember someone saying to me, I said, someone had owed me money. And I was like, I just spent like a whole month in hospital. I was like, you know what? I need to get my medication. Hey, can I get the money you owe me? And they were like, I was like, because if I don't, then this will happen and then I'll end up in the hospital. And they told me, well, I don't have it. And that's life. I said,
wow.
who the hell am I really? And so in a sense, I really feel like God gave me a gift. And I know it doesn't seem like a gift if you have MS, but it's a gift. By the way, if you have
really are.
By the way, if you have MS and you are on paper and you have student loans, your student loans gets wiped. Did you know that?
Wait, what? No, I did not know that.
Well, I guess my aunt called me the other day and she told me her friend, two sons, and they're in their 40s, and their student loans were wiped, and they went to like Howard, big money places, and so
this is something we're gonna have to look into and advise people about this on a future episode, because like someone like me and other people are definitely gonna want to know if there are people out there that have MS and student loans. That's
so
that's life-changing.
Yeah. So I see it as the gift that keeps on giving. But you know what? I would love for you to go deeper about the history, because I know you looked into the history, and I think people need to learn about this.
All right. So the majority of what most people know about multiple sclerosis, aka MS, stems from TV commercials showing treatments that are currently being used for MS, like Tysabri, Kesimpta, and Ocrevus, or celebrities that publicly came out confirming their diagnosis. For people within my age range, we knew about MS because of celebrities such as Montel Williams, the old talk show host, Richard Pryor, and the singer Tamia Hill. At least that's how I knew about some people with MS. And most recently, other celebrities disclosed their MS diagnosis. Celebrities like Selma Blair, Jack Osbourne, Jamie Lynn Seeger, Christina Applegate, and Michael McCreary from Boyz II Men. However, what most people don't know, even people who have MS, is the origin or history of MS. For most of us, either living with MS or people who are in relationships, spouses, family members, friends, co-workers, or just people who know someone with MS, is what causes MS.
Stay tuned. Just stick to the script, ladies.